could have diagnosed me with childhood anxiety disorder, or I mean, there was there was teachers that were sending notes home, like, what the heck is going on with you? What the heck is going on with this kid? And there was something that made it very, very uncomfortable for me to be a part of school and a part of groups of people and a friend among friends. I just wasn't comfortable doing it. I start to drink Four Roses whiskey, and all of a sudden everything that was wrong was made right. All of a sudden I felt like I belonged. And for alcoholics, alcohol does something for us. For non-alcoholics, listen to the amateurs that get the DUIs on New Year's Eve and stuff like that. Alcohol does to anybody that drinks it. It'll get you drunk. But there's something that alcohol does for us. It makes us feel connected. We can hear the music better. The colors of life are brighter when we drink. And that's not the way it is for non-alcoholics. So from the get-go, I start to believe that I need alcohol to be able to feel like you guys do normally. And there's something wrong with me, but alcohol fixes the things that are wrong with me. And that started my cycle of drinking off. Somewhere along the line, the book Alcoholics Anonymous, which is I'm a big book loving guy. Somewhere, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says, somewhere we cross a line. And what the line of demarcation is, can we quit drinking on our own or not? And many of us cross that line before we're even interested in quitting drinking. That's what kills so many alcoholics. That's why so many people die alcoholic deaths, is because they've crossed the line into not being able to stay separated from alcohol on their own, and they're going to need some type of help. The book Alcoholics Anonymous has a psychiatrist who says they need a psychic change. And then there's a doctor in here that says they need, apart from divine help, they're hopeless. And then there's another doctor that's referenced in the book Alcoholics Anonymous that says we need a conversion experience, a complete conversion experience to become the type of people who can stay separated from alcohol. And that's really what our problem is. Here's what I thought for many, many years. That I just need to want to not drink enough. You know what I mean? And every once in a while I would, come to with a DUI summons in my back pocket, and I'd make it like 3 days without drinking. I'm not going to drink anymore. But on the fourth day, this whole not drinking thing might have been an overreaction, and I would buy alcohol and I would start drinking alcohol again. And the lie that I told myself was, I changed my mind. Yeah, I swore off alcohol and I meant it, but I've changed my mind. When really the real problem is I don't have a mind to change. Where alcohol is concerned, I'm out of my mind. I can't use my logic and my reasoning and my willpower against alcohol because I am powerless over it. And this is what kills so many of us. Even months into AA, I thought AA was like a giant pep rally. Yay, yay, we don't drink today. Like a big football huddle. We're gonna first things first, and we're gonna easy does it. And see you tomorrow at the Looney Nooney break. And we would just reconvince each other on a daily basis that drinking is a bad idea. But that's not what Alcoholics Anonymous is. Alcoholics Anonymous is much more than that. Alcoholics Anonymous offers us a program of recovery where we can recover. We can recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. So I had the car crashes, folks. I could sit here and tell war stories all day long. I would rather concentrate on the things that we have in common. You may not have crashed 9 cars and drunken blackouts. You might not have come to in jail not knowing why you were there. And if I tell those stories, it's easy for somebody to say, well, I'm not as bad as that guy. But what I'd rather do is I'd rather talk about the things that I believe that we have in common. And one of the things I believe we have in common is after the dash, that our lives had become unmanageable. Yes, most of us, it's easy for us to say, when I start drinking, I lose control. I become overserved. Many of us can admit to that. Some of us can even admit to, I've tried to quit drinking on my own and it's never worked. Some of us can be that honest. But I think the difficult thing is understanding just how comprehensive alcoholism is in our lives. Once we separate from alcohol, you know what alcoholism becomes? An emotional illness. It becomes a spiritual illness that we need to start to deal with. So how does unmanageability present in me when I separate from alcohol? Okay, alcohol's off the table. I'm allergic to it. Okay, I get that. I'm allergic to it. It's off the table. I'm putting it down. Great. What happens next for me is things slowly start to come off the rails. The book Alcoholics Anonymous, I wish they had a chapter on unmanageability, because what they do is they pepper the unmanageability all throughout the book, and I have to kind of find it. I have to find it and I have to identify with it. But I'll share with you some of the aspects that I believe are the after the dash and step 1 unmanageability that I suffered from. On a good day, I was restless, irritable, and discontented. Anybody in here identify with those feelings? Listen, these aren't feelings that only alcoholics have, but this unmanageability is what drives our alcoholism. It needs to be treated. So I'm restless. Nothing's ever right. Nothing's ever right. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm in Pennsylvania. I got stuff to do at home. So I'm restless. I'm irritable. People were driving like idiots. It's 50 miles an hour. It's not 35. I had to follow this guy. So, I'm irritable, discontented. I'm just not happy. That's on a good day after I've separated from alcohol. You see these people in the meetings. You see the restless, irritable, and discontented people in the meetings. They're pissed off about everything. Yeah, and that's untreated alcoholism. Now, so on a good day, I'm restless, irritable, and discontented. On a normal day, I am prey to anxiety. I'm prey to misery. Self-centered fear is all over me, and self-centered fear manifests like anxiety. Just not being comfortable with myself and my environment. I'm just not comfortable right here, right now, doing this. I want to leave. That's self-centered fear. Guilt, shame, and remorse. So what happens with the alcoholic is this. The healing power of God manifests at one time and one time only. Now. What happens with the alcoholic is we have guilt and we've got shame and we've got remorse and we've got regret about things that have happened in the past, and we rehash these things. We constantly think about them, like, I can't believe I did that. I don't believe what a mistake. Oh my God, if that didn't happen, things would be so different. So we live in the past. There's this alcoholic that I've been working with for literally 25 years, and the reason why I haven't given up on him is because I went through school with him from second grade on, and we were really, really good friends. And I will not give up on this guy. He lives in Allentown. And he calls me up drunk about every 3 months. And you know what he wants to talk about? How he got kicked off of the baseball team in high school. I'm like, dude, that was 50 years ago. You know what I mean? You know? Like, so we live in the past, and that makes the now impossible to experience. And another thing is we have anxiety about the future. We're like, oh man, tomorrow's not going to be good. I got to go talk to the boss. I didn't get that report done. Oh, I'm going to get fired. It's going to be terrible. I'm going to get fired. Oh, it's just, and so and so is going to say something, and I'm going to have to say something. So we're preoccupied with the future. We've got a lot of anxiety about the future, and we can't experience the now. And the now is where the healing power of God exists. So that's part of our unmanageability too. And it's an emotional illness. I don't care what anybody says. It's untreated alcoholism. So on a really bad day is the hideous four horsemen: terror, frustration, bewilderment, and despair. You ever seen the horsemen? You know what I'm talking about? Pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. These are emotional states that we suffer from all the time. And it's in between the drinks. And one of the things that alcoholics do 20 times more than non-alcoholics is they take their own life. We get to a point where it's just living life in our heads is just too uncomfortable. I can't, I don't want to feel bad like this. I don't want to suffer like this anymore. And I've seen, I have the ability to see statistics because I'm involved with a couple of organizations that keep track of this stuff, NCADD and whatever, and the overdose deaths and the suicide by people like us has doubled or tripled since COVID. And I believe it's because we've been cut off. We've been cut off from the sunlight of the Spirit. And the first part of the sunlight of the Spirit is what we're doing here right now. Getting together with each other. We've got a common problem. And we've got a common solution. And we hang out with each other and we help each other. And by helping each other, we're helped. And we get back into the community. And this is where the sunlight of the Spirit starts. This is where the healing power of God starts. If you're an alcoholic. Now, I had so many things wrong when I started coming to Alcoholics Anonymous. But the one thing that I did right was I never stopped coming, and I never stopped working toward what I thought I was supposed to do, what my job in AA was supposed to be. I kept coming. And if somebody said, hey, Chris, clean up the ashtrays. Oh, God damn it. But I'd clean up the ashtrays. Hey, Chris, can you stay after and help stack the chairs? Well, why do I have to? Yeah. I would say yes. Even if I didn't want to do it, I would say yes, because I knew that was the expected response. And I had a sponsor who was pointing me towards service, and he was pointing me toward things I didn't understand. Like, why I don't even smoke. Why do you want me to clean the ashtrays? I don't drink coffee. Why do I have to clean the coffee pot? That made no sense to me. But I had some faith in my sponsor, and he started to get me involved in some of the things that were behavioral changes in me that went against my belief systems. My belief systems were very selfish, very self-centered, very self-aware. And I was always making value judgments on how is that going to impact me? What good is that going to do for me? That's how I was looking at everything. And my sponsor was shoving up against that, saying, you're gonna do stuff for fun and for free. And you're gonna just be of service, because it's being of service that is what I want you to do. And I remember one of my first memories was, it was an event like this. It was for a treatment center. I was maybe 2 months sober. And my sponsor said, you're coming out, I'm cooking for the big picnic for CAI Treatment Center, and you're going to help me. Okay, Phil, okay. And he put me behind a grill, and he had me cooking shrimp and lobster for 3 hours with the wind blowing in my face. So I smelled like a burnt crustacean, after about an hour. And I'm like, Phil, and there's people playing volleyball and getting to know each other, and I'm like, Phil, can I go now? He's like, no, your commitment is to cook the shellfish. And I had no idea why he was torturing me like this. I thought he was torturing me. He was just making me do stuff, because he could. I come to realize that because the foundation of my life was so structured on selfishness and self-centeredness, he didn't say this, but he could have said this. Chris, you are so selfish and so self-centered. The only treatment I can see is to make you do unselfish things for years to come. And hopefully you'll get to the other side of this selfishness and self-centeredness. But he didn't say that. He just said he needed help. And that was another thing that made me feel part of you. I always felt different than you. I felt, okay, I'm an alcoholic, but I'm not a run-of-the-mill alcoholic, My alcoholism has some special attributes, like I've got kind of this dark, complicated, artistic kind of personality, I see the tragedy of life at a much more acute level, and so I suffer more than, I've got, my case is different than yours. And I had to be shown that my case is not different than yours. I suffer from alcoholism like you do. Yeah, my life is different than yours. Some of the things I get involved with are different than yours, but I'm not different than you. I'm an alcoholic. So I'm struggling along in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I am no vision for you. You know what I mean? I am restless. I'm irritable. I'm discontented. I'm pissed off. I don't like the meetings. I don't like the people. I'm judgmental. Like, can you believe what so and so shared? He says he's grateful. Yeah, right. I was that guy. I always had something bad to say about everybody. And I was slowly dying from the unmanageability. What happens, folks, is the unmanageability gets to a point where our life is too painful to live that way. It's too painful to live that way. And you know what we do? We do one of three things usually. We kill ourselves, we relapse, or we end up in the hatch. Those are really our three, because life is just too uncomfortable. And it's because of the progressive nature of alcoholism. And if alcoholism is progressive, unmanageability is progressive, because that's part of alcoholism. So what happened with me? I had a friend. His name was Radio Shack Mike. And, everybody had nicknames back in the day, Ron. Everybody did. And I realized in an inventory it's because I was nicknaming them all. I was like, yeah, Mr. Fellowship, where's Bummed Out Bob, Bummed Out Bob found out his nickname was Bummed Out Bob. He started crying. Oh my God, I felt so terrible for nicknaming him, but what are you going to do? So anyway, this guy Radio Shack Mike was one of these people who, he wasn't really an alcoholic. What, back in the late 80s, you could not shake a stick without hitting a treatment center. You couldn't shake a stick because the Hughes Act had gone into effect and there was parity legislation. And if you opened a treatment center up and your treatment process was shaking dead chickens over people's heads, you would get reimbursed by the insurance companies for for $180 per chicken. It was just one of those things back in the day. It's completely different now. You actually have to be clinically, competent. But back in the day, they were pulling guys out of AA who had like a year sober and making them counselors. And there were treatment centers everywhere. So this guy, Radio Shack Mike, had gotten arrested with a little bit of white powder in his car, which can happen to some of us. You know how that is. And he decided what he needed to do was he needed to go to rehab and he needed to get the letters from everybody before he went to see the judge. And he had to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. So Radio Shack Mike was in Alcoholics Anonymous. No more alcoholic than the man in the moon. You know what I mean? He drank like 6 times in his life. But he's in AA and he's my new best friend. And he really got off on the spiritual part of Alcoholics Anonymous. All of a sudden he was in a group of people where he's not going to get in trouble and he's making friends and he's dating girls and he's DJing parties and he's loving this Alcoholics Anonymous thing. And he starts to go to the New Age bookstores. And he was a very, very pious guy. One day he'd come up to me and he'd say, Chris, pyramids, Chris. I got a pyramid over my bed. It's changed my life. You got to get a pyramid. And, the next day it would be crystals. Crystal, I got these crystals. Oh, you wouldn't believe it. It's so great. You're going to probably need the real serious crystals because I got the medium crystals. You're going to need the heavy duty crystals, but you got to get crystals. And then another day, it's affirmations. Chris, I'm doing these affirmations in the mirror. My life has changed. He was very pious. So I didn't trust him that much with this stuff. But one day he comes up to me and he hands me a stack of 90-minute cassette tapes, 8 90-minute cassette tapes. And he goes, Chris, man, you should listen to this. So I'm like, well, what is it? He goes, it's a big book workshop. I go, a big book? He goes, yeah, it's a big book workshop. I go, the book they give you in treatment? Because there were no big book meetings around my area at that time. And he goes, yeah, the book they gave us in treatment. He goes, I didn't like it very much, but I have a feeling, you'll like it. I go, okay, who does it? He goes, these guys from Arkansas. I'm like, Arkansas? And I do the math. 8 90-minute tapes is 12 hours. I'm going to have to listen to guys from Arkansas talk about the book Alcoholics Anonymous. Why don't you just kill me now? You know what I mean? But he made me promise. And I started listening to, and this was the first understanding I had that Alcoholics Anonymous has a recovery program. You don't find it in all the meetings. All the meetings is fellowship-based. It brings us back into community. We help support each other. I absolutely adore the fellowship. Nothing would have happened without the fellowship. Nothing would have happened without the fellowship. But within the fellowship, within the book Alcoholics Anonymous, is a recovery program. And what these guys, Joe and Charlie, the late great Joe and Charlie, started to tell me was what the steps were, how to take the steps, and what you can expect to get from the steps. And I didn't take this information. I wasn't, thrilled to hear this information because at this point in time, I'm like 9 months sober, and I'm starting to feel comfortable, with the AA community and everything. And what Joe and Charlie were telling me was, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to the fellowship, but I don't know what I'm doing. And I wasn't real happy to hear that, I wasn't happy to hear that I thought I was doing my job. I was doing what my sponsor was telling me to do. I was taking group commitments. I was doing 12 meetings a week. What do you mean I'm not doing my job? So I shoved the tapes aside and I said, maybe that's how they do it in Arkansas. Who knows what they do in Arkansas? Maybe that's how they do it in Arkansas. But in New Jersey, we share. We go to discussion meetings and we share. And then I got lifed. So if you get sober, and all you really are is sober, life has a way of handing off challenges. It's going to happen to all of us. It can be the death of a family member. It can be the loss of a job. It can be a bankruptcy. It can be the loss of a marriage or a long-term relationship, or one of your kids gets sick. Or it can be anything like that. You get lifed. And what happened to me was, at around 10 months sober or something, I got lifed. I had started dating a girl that I met on the druggy buggy, which I don't recommend. I don't recommend this as long-term relationship advice, because two dinglings don't make a bell. And I found that out the hard way. And we were together a good solid 2 weeks, and I thought this was something special. I thought this is really going to be great, right? And she thought different. And then I started to get mail from Florida. I had gone down to college in Florida for 5 years. I was in Florida going to college, and I got to tell you, I got a solid 6 credits. Out of that 5 years, you know what I mean? Because it was just a big party. And I got in a lot of trouble down there. That's where I would come to in jail, not knowing why I was there. And, having car accidents. And you can go, it was the Wild West, Tampa, Florida, in the late 1970s. And what happened was, it became inconvenient to deal with all the courts and the fines and the probation and the community service. You know how that stuff is. That's inconvenient. That doesn't work for me. So I thought, back in New Jersey, Mom probably needs some help around the house. So I moved back to New Jersey, not dealing with any of that stuff. Well, the computers are getting smart in 1990. Right? They're all coming online. They're all talking to each other. And I start to get mail with letterhead like fleeing to avoid prosecution, And they start threatening my driver's license, and I lose my job, all like in 1 week. And emotionally, remember I said that alcohol, you separate from alcohol, and alcoholism almost becomes an emotional illness. Well, what happened with me was I had no capacity I had no dealage, for all this stuff. There was just no way. It was too much. And I remember I did run over to my sponsor's house, and I knocked on his door. And he was not used to me just showing up unannounced, so he was quite surprised. He's like, Chris, well, what's going on? Come on in. And I walk inside, and I literally can't talk. I am emotionally struck mute. He's going, what's going on? And I'm like, He's going, well, what happened? And I started to feel like an idiot. I could not talk. And so he kind of gives up. He goes, listen, Chris, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go home, and I want you to pray. Okay? Whatever's going on, go home and ask God for help. Ask God for help, and He sends me on my way. And I get back home, and I do a little praying, and the next thought out of my mind is those tapes, those damn tapes. Because here's what had happened: Joe and Charlie had disturbed me about my alcoholism, and I disturb people every once in a while about their alcoholism too, because I talk about alcoholism. Joe and Charlie had disturbed me about my alcoholism. They talked truth to me. They had described what I was up against, how much trouble I was really in. I didn't want to hear that I was in that much trouble. I didn't want to hear I was up against something that only a divine help, only an act of divine providence can relieve me of. I didn't want to hear that. But Joe and Charlie had haunted me with that information. And for one reason or another, right after I prayed, the thought came to my mind that I'm going to take these tapes down. I'm going to start listening to them. I'm going to blow the dust off the big book that they gave me in treatment. And I'm going to start doing this program that they talk about, this recovery program that they talk about. And I started to work a program, a very poor program, a very imperfect attempt at the steps. But here's the funny thing about the grace of God. The grace of God looked like this to me. It didn't matter that I did a crappy 4-step. It mattered that I did a 4-step. It didn't matter that I did crappy prayers. It mattered that I prayed. We don't get drunk because we do an imperfect 4-step. We get drunk because we refuse to do a 4-step. We don't get drunk because we do kind of a halfway 5th step or whatever. We get drunk because we refuse to be honest in a 5th step. We don't get drunk because we do some amends that really don't work out well. We get drunk because we refuse to do amends. And I know that today. So why am I here today? Because I had at least enough willingness to start working a very, very imperfect program. And today I understand this program really well. I understand this program really well, and I've gone through it many, many times. And the best way I can describe it is like this. Step 1 is we have to concede to our innermost selves that we're powerless. And for us to concede we're powerless, 2 things have to be true. One of them is we can't control the amount we're drinking once we start drinking, and the other is we can't control when we drink. Those 2 things have to be active for us to be able to admit we're powerless. Because we have to be powerless over alcohol when we're not drinking it, and we have to be powerless over alcohol when we're drinking it. And then that our lives are unmanageable. Here's something that was really, really difficult for me to believe, that I could not manage my own life. I'm in treatment in 1984. I signed myself into a 28-day treatment center. And I didn't care much for the food, and they only let you smoke in a certain room, and you had to make your bed. And I was upset about all this stuff, so I organized the people in the treatment center. I got everybody together. We're going to organize. And we all marched down to the nurse's station with our demands. And you know what they did? They laughed at us. Where do you go with that? They just started laughing at us. Well, here's what we want, we want better food. We want real coffee. We don't want this decaf crap. And they just started laughing at us. So in the midst of the most unmanageable life a person could live, I'm trying to manage yours. I'm trying to organize you to think the way I think. This is crazy. So I have to come to terms with I cannot manage my own life. I need to fire the manager. There needs to be management at a different level. And what Alcoholics Anonymous says is we need to develop a relationship with a power greater than ourselves that can do for us what we cannot do for ourselves. We need to come to terms with, we need management at a higher level. And step 2 basically is, I believe that this management at a higher level is the only thing that's going to keep me from picking back up alcohol. It's going to keep me from experiencing the obsession of the mind. And it's going to enable me to somewhat put my life back together. Maybe I've got some bad skills. Maybe. I'm living at home with Mom. I'm 33. So step 2 is there's a better way. There's a better way. There's a power that I can gain access to that can help me put my life together. And step 3 is making a decision to go after that solution. Making a decision to develop that relationship. And then step 4, I need to look. Has anybody ever said this to you? What is wrong with you? Have you ever heard that? Oh my God, what is wrong with you? You just went to the bathroom in our coat closet, or you burned a hole in our $4,000 couch with your cigarette, or why did you park in our rose bushes, I used to hear that all. What is wrong with you? So that's a difficult question to answer. If you're anything like me, that's a very, very difficult question to answer because you have to look at yourself, right? It's not comfortable to look at. So I would take that question and I would ricochet it right back at you. What's wrong with you, man? That's where people normally put their bathrooms. Or what's wrong with you, man? There was no room in the driveway. You know what I mean? Like it's got to be your fault. It would be inconvenient for it to be my fault. So I had to look at the causes and conditions of what was really going on in my life. And there are 3 really big areas that need to be looked at. And they need to be looked at right away. One of them is my anger, my resentment. I am mad at everybody. I have resentments against everybody. My head would come off the pillow in the morning, and my first thought would be, those bastards. You know what I mean? And I would go into this thought stream where the guy who had done me wrong like 4 years ago, I'm going to get him, and that resentment was killing me. Another thing that was killing me was my anxiety, my not feeling comfortable with myself or my environment, not feeling comfortable going certain places or talking to certain people. It was self-centered fear. And I needed to look at this self-centered fear. I needed to outgrow this fear for me to be able to go and do what I needed to go and do for a quality of life for myself and the people I care about. I need to overcome this self-centered fear and this anger and this resentment. They have to go. That's my alcoholism. That's my unmanageability. That's the stuff that's going to drive me back to drink. And I also have to look at my intimate relationships, my sex relationships. I need to look at how I treated and how I behaved in relationships where I honestly really did care about the people I was in those relationships with. Because I acted abysmally. If I got in a relationship, it was a matter of time before it went down like the Hindenburg. And if that wasn't changed, I would have remained single perpetually. Because there's not a human being in the world that would put up with that kind of behavior from somebody. I wasn't restraining order guy, ladies, but I was pretty darn close. You know what I mean? And so I had to look at this stuff. And I had to take responsibility for this behavior, and then I had to put together an ideal for a future relationship ideal. Okay, I now know what doesn't work. Creating confusion and jealousy and suspicion and dishonest. I now know what doesn't work. How about I put together an ideal of what does work? So the next party I show up at, I'll be able to be a partner, instead of somebody, taking somebody hostage. I put all this stuff down on paper. It's not a comfortable exercise. It goes against everything that my ego my ego does not want to look at what's wrong with me. You know what I mean? And that's why it works so well, because it goes directly up against my alcoholism. It goes directly up against the belief systems that are so tragically wrong that I've had for so many years. And then I go to a sponsor today. It's appropriate to go to a sponsor or a spiritual advisor. And I share all this stuff as brutally honest as I can possibly be. And I did that with my first sponsor, Phil. And at the end, he looked at me and he said, Chris, he could see that I was beating myself up. I mean, the 4-step was pages and pages of my failure at life, right? And he knew I was down. And he looked at me and he goes, Chris, I want to explain something to you. He goes, Chris, your alcoholism, I believe you were alcoholic before you even started drinking. And I believe your alcoholism was like, you ever see like a campfire that it burned down to like the red ember, the red coals, it's just kind of smoldering, I go, yeah. He goes, I think that's what your alcoholism was like. And when you cracked the top of that Four Roses whiskey and drank it, it was like throwing gasoline on that. And all of a sudden the flames came up and they burnt you and everybody close to you. Today, you're trying to tamp those flames down. You're making an effort. You did a 4-step and you're sharing it with me. It's a 5th step. You're making a serious effort to try to be a better person, to try to recover from this alcoholism thing. Back off of yourself a little bit. Ease up. You've been beating yourself up too much. Now, step 6 and step 7. Today I've got an understanding of 6 and 7 that has changed over the years, but I'll tell you what my current understanding of 6 and 7 is. The things that I found in my 4-step and 5th step that were objectionable to me, I become willing to have God remove these defects of character. I needed God's help removing the alcohol. I absolutely needed God's help removing the alcohol. I'm going to need God's help with this change that's going to take place in me. These defects of character are ingrained. They're default settings. I can't just be a better person because I want to be. I can't just be unselfish because I've decided so. These defects of character are burrowed into me. And I am going to need God's help, and I need to be willing to have these defects of character removed by this power that I'm gaining access to in this step work. And step 7 is humbly asking God to remove these defects of character. And I want to say one thing. Full stop after that, okay? Full stop. I don't work on my character defects. I've asked God to remove them, and now I direct my energy into a list of people and institutions that these defects of character have harmed, and I now go out and make direct amends to the institutions and the people that these defects of character have harmed. I don't sit there working on myself. I try to straighten out the damage that's been done. That's my next spiritual exercise. And so I go out and I make a bunch of amends. I've probably completed 3 or 4 amends lists in the last 30 years. And I've straightened out the past. There's not one town, there's not one road in America where I don't feel comfortable walking down that I'll bump into somebody I've hurt that I haven't addressed that amends. And there's a freedom in that. There's a marvelous freedom in that. Knowing that you're square with everybody and every institution. You're square. Then I need to look at step 10. I need to start practicing these principles. The principles that I've learned in the first 9 steps. I need to start developing this as a way of life. As an alcoholic, I'm going to need to live a specific way of life to survive alcoholism. 95 alcoholics out of 100 die from alcoholism. I want to die with alcoholism because I'm always going to be alcoholic. I don't want to die from it. I'd rather die from natural causes. And for me to be able to do that, there's a certain way I need to live. That's going to not allow me to fall back into a relapse cycle. It's sad. The American Medical Association, when they describe alcoholism, they describe it as a chronically relapsing condition. So when you go to a doctor and you tell them you're an alcoholic, they'll probably want payment up front. You know what I mean? Because it's a chronically relapsing condition according to the medical journals. We're the exceptions. How lucky are we to have found a way out? How lucky are we to have found a solution? How lucky are we that Bill and Bob, and Hank Parkhurst and Fitz Mayo and all the original members of the Alcoholics Anonymous, the alcoholic squad, how lucky are we that they were able to put together the directions for recovery from alcoholism in this book. So in steps 10, I need to read, like when I'm wrong, I need to promptly admit it. When I've hurt somebody, I need to make amends. I need to start applying these. When I need to talk to somebody, about something, I need to talk to somebody about something. It has to be my new operational methodology. Instead of dodging and weaving like I did as an alcoholic. Oh my God, I started that on fire. I got to get out of here. That was me. Flight solved a lot of things. Then I look at step 11. I need to seek through prayer and meditation to improve this contact, this relationship that I've developed with this power greater than myself. Now, here's the thing, folks. This power greater than ourselves, it's going to remain a mystery. I remember. I've married a bunch of Catholics, 3 of them actually, and one of them made me go to church, right? And we'd have to go to church, and I didn't understand any of this stuff. I got out of church at age 12. I was gone, right? So I married this person who's dragging me back to church, and I'm thinking, Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, the Trinity, and all this. None of it's making any sense to me. And one day I go into this mass, and it's Christmas Eve, and the priest with the big dunce cap and everything is walking around with one of those smoke buckets. He's got a smoke bucket and he's throwing water on everybody, right? And he keeps saying this one thing, the mystery. And I got it. It's faith. It's not something that you can figure out like it's a calculus problem. It's faith. And I believe the same thing is true with our relationship with our higher power. It's going to be a mystery. Does God intervene? Does God not intervene? Does he set the stage? Does he speak through people? We've all got all these things. It's a mystery. But I can tell you what, I've experienced that power. I've experienced the grace of God. I have faith in the grace of God. And that's come through the exercises in step 11. Upon awakening, we carefully review our day. When we retire at night, we constructively review our day. As we move throughout the day, we watch for selfishness, dishonesty, self-centeredness, fear. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. And following those directives, those disciplines in step 11 have brought me to this faith. I've got enormous faith. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm not afraid of a lot. I'm not going to be stupid, But there's not this fear, this anxiety that I used to suffer from chronically is gone. I've outgrown it. And then I get to the brass ring in Alcoholics Anonymous. You know what the brass ring is? Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, I tried to carry this message to other alcoholics and practice these principles in all my affairs. So here's what I learned with the 12 steps. You want to really learn the 12 steps? Teach them. Start working with somebody. Start taking other people through the 12 steps. Because if you want to really learn something, you learn it by teaching. And that's what I did. I started sponsoring it about 10 months or so. Right? I didn't know anything. But I was trying, and I was trying to be helpful. And probably the greatest activity I've engaged in the last 30 years is trying to help other people recover from alcoholism. There's a promise in the book Alcoholics Anonymous. It says, create the fellowship you crave. We're going to create the fellowship you crave. This is a fellowship here. There were some people who helped create this, right? We create the fellowship we crave. We're now we go back into society. We're tribal people, folks. It's instinctual. We're tribal people. And alcoholism has shoved us out of the tribe. Well, we're coming back in now, and we're going to create the fellowship we crave. I always wanted really good friends. I never had them. They were the kind of friends that lasted as long as the 8 ball, or you know what I mean? They were just crappy friends. They'd call you up when they needed to get bailed out or something. It's the only time you'd hear them. So today I've got a host of friends. Ron, you know what I'm talking about. They're all over the country. They're all over the world, and these are really, really good friends. And we experienced the lifeboat. We were all in the lifeboat. We had to learn how to get along and not kick anybody out of the lifeboat. And after the course of time, now we've become really, really close. In step 3, part of the step 3 decision is to start considering God as a father, as a principal, and as a director, okay? All right, if I'm considering God as a father, and I'm a child of God, you're children of God too, right? What does that make you to me? It makes you my brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? And this is completely foreign to my thinking. I used to think, you're out to get me. It's a hostile universe. I got to hustle. I got to dodge and weave. I got to get what I can get out of this whole thing and get gone, Today it's a completely different perspective. I come out to Pennsylvania to sit under a pavilion and get a chance to share with you some of my experience, strength, and hope. And you're my brothers and sisters, and I love all of you. And that's amazing to me. And what's happened is this 12-step. This 12-step was the brass ring. It was the brass ring. The fellowship I crave. The crew I always wanted. I've got today. And the quality of my life is extraordinary. If you're new, if you're just coming back, I got some advice for you. Get a sponsor. Get an experienced sponsor. Get a sponsor who understands the steps and is involved in service, okay? And then when they tell you to do something, it's probably going to be stupid what they tell you, and it's probably not going to work for you. Do it anyway. That's the spiritual discipline. That's the spiritual discipline, to follow direction. Because we don't understand this stuff going in. You don't understand what a step is going to do for you before you do the step. You got to go in on faith. You got to go in on authority from a sponsor. And just do those things and experience this awakening. The spiritual awakening is, I speak to you this afternoon with an awakened spirit. That does not make me a perfect person, but I'm awake today. I see things as they are. I see things as they really are. I believe that. I've been restored to sanity. And I am really, really grateful. Chris, thank you for asking me to come out here. That's all I got. Let's get about the business of the picnic or whatever else is going on here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chris. Can we get another round of applause for our speaker, Chris S. from Bernardsville, New Jersey. So, ladies and gentlemen, just a few housekeeping issues. Who's here for the first time? Raise your hand and keep it up, pretty please. We'll be here for at least another couple weeks, and then we're going to be moving to Bensalem. Please see me before you go. Let me get your phone number. We got a Facebook page, Big Book Breakdown by the Lake, Big Book Breakdown by the Park. I'm still not sure how it's confused and how it works, but let's just stay connected. You could check with the Facebook page. I send out some flyers, some things like that. We will be at a church behind Parks Casino probably within the next 2 to 4 weeks. If the weather continues like this, we'll be here. Call me, Facebook message me, whatever. Who has not been through the 12 steps? Oh, Meredith, right here. Please, we have no dues or fees, but we have incredible expenses. Big Book Breakdown in the Park suggests $20, $30 donation, but we'll take $1 or $2 or whatever you could possibly give us. And, it takes a little bit more than I hate. Hold on, Ron's coming up here. Ron K, guys, can we...
Somebody needs a ride back to Doylestown if anybody's leaving now.
Nobody leave now. Everybody stay. Please give what you can. Those of you who have not been through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, can you please raise your hands and keep it up? One person. Come on, guys. For real. Raise your hands. No? All right. Anyway, without further ado, please help yourself. We got hot dogs, turkey burgers, cheeseburgers, everything. If you brought anything, we appreciate it. Please put some money in the basket to help us cover our expenses. Drew, raise your hand. We got Drew right here. We got a 50-50, folks. And it's been very, very good lately. Get some phone numbers, meet some people. Thank you. We got to the winner. We got about a $70 pool. It's been about $100 lately. Drew's right here. Basket, Meredith, raise her hand. She's back behind the fireplace. Please help us try to cover our expenses. Most importantly, guys, get some phone numbers. I got some literature up here. We got grapevines, so on and so forth. Please enjoy yourself. Eat as much as you can. And 50-50 up here. Thank you. Who needs a ride to Doylestown? Ron, who needs the ride? Who needs a ride to Doylestown? Ron K. Ronnie K. Ron, who needs the ride? The young lady right there? McCloskey. Enjoy yourself, guys. Eat all you can eat. And we're going to put the Eagles game on unless there is any kind of Eagles game it is. Thank you.
We don't care about the Eagles either. I'm just pretending.
I mean, my hooligan.
With Kelsey, but not ready for primetime players.
First and 10. Ravens moving right to left. Dobbins in the backfield.
You like those? Yeah, dude, I just found
You don't
them.
think I can?
No.
Why not?
Because. Thank you, baby.